Hey guys, Furples here, posting a quick video, or hopefully it's a quick video, but I tend to ramble. Hopefully a quick video with three hands from my recent 10NL and 25NL session. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a professional or semi-professional or somebody who's a run-at-once coach, so this isn't necessarily meant to be coaching material. I'm definitely beating these games, but it's more meant to share my thought process. It might help beginners and also spark some discussion, get some feedback on my play. So I'm probably going to make more of these videos in the future because I've just realized that my internship will in fact be only 40 to 50 hours a week, which means I'll have tons of time outside of that for poker, especially because I've been put on a project that's in the middle of nowhere, so there's actually just nothing to do. So I'm probably going to play an unhealthy amount of poker over the next 4 or 5 weeks. So expect more of these videos. And I've already started rambling, so I'm just going to jump into the hands. Starting off at 10NL, very new to the table. Button opens 3x. We 3-bet just over 3x his raise. Don't have any reads because I just joined the table, but I like 3-betting this hand instead of calling for a number of different reasons. Not many people are squeezing at 10-0, but by calling we do give 6 a good opportunity to squeeze. By 3-betting, well, I guess one thing to consider is at these stakes, players have a pretty wide button opening range, but they're often not defending against 3-bets very correctly. So a lot of people will just fold pretty much all their hands that aren't, tens, ace jack, ace queen, ace king, which is really good for us. And sometimes people will just over defend and just flat their entire buttoning opening range to a 3-bet. And yeah, I guess I'm sort of rambling, but I guess it's a much better hand to 3-bet because if he has a hand like king jack and he folds, it's actually really good for us because he has pretty good pre-flop equity, and we don't mind taking it down pre-flop. And if he does have ace jack, ace queen, ace king, he's obviously not folding those, but we do win it sometimes when we see bet the flop. So we end up 3-betting. He calls. We check the ace 9-6 2-spade board. I think it's a pretty easy check for pot control. He has a lot of ace jack, ace queen, ace king. He does have hands like tens, jacks, maybe hands like king 10. So it's a pretty easy check against that range. So we check call. He bets like half pot. Turn is really interesting. Gives us a gut shot and a 10 high flush draw. I check. He bets like 75% pot, almost a little under 75% pot. And we ended up check calling again. My thinking at the time was that we might get to showdown if he has like a red ace queen and we make our flush. We might also stack him if he has ace king and the river's an 8. And I guess sometimes he's bluffing, but he can't really have many bluffs here. So in hindsight, I think this turn is a fold, but we end up calling anyway. It's a really gross fold because we do have a decent amount of equity against a lot of his hands, but we're just crushed a lot of the time. So I end up calling. I think this is a fold. And the river is a jack of diamonds. We check, he jams, and at the time I pretty comfortably folded. And then I realized that if I was going to fold this river, I probably should have folded the turn, but anyway, that's the first hand. I think it's pretty standard. I think I played it in a way that most people would, but in hindsight, I think I should have folded the turn. But yeah, that's the first hand. All right, so here's the second hand. We have queen 10 offsuit in the big blind, 25NL zone, so no reads. Small blind opens to just under 3x. Actually, a pretty weird sizing. That's like 2.85x or something weird. But we end up calling. Pretty easy defense. Wow, is that a voice crack? Am I going to keep that in? Fuck it, let's keep it in. I don't care. Yeah, give me the shit for that. I don't care. I'm a little bit under the weather, so, it happens. Anyway, so he c-bets, and we decide to call. We're not folding top pair, especially when he's opening the small blind pretty wide, or most people are opening the small blind pretty wide. And we're not folding, we're not raising, so pretty easy call. Turn is the 10 of spades. He bets just under half pot. At the time, I wasn't sure whether raising would be too thin, just because he obviously does have a decent amount of flush combos, also hands like 7, 8, and sometimes better tens. And also, even though at the time I did think I had the best hand, I mean, you're obviously doing really well against his range when he bets the turn, but I didn't think there were many worse hands that would call if I raised. So at the time I was thinking it was a little bit thin, but I did decide to raise. And I guess the lesson in this hand is don't raise without a plan, because I raised, wasn't expecting him to jam. I don't know why I wasn't expecting him to jam, because he has a ton of value hands here that just stick it in. Like a lot of his boats, just obviously just going to stick it in here. Even 7, 8 is usually going to stick it in here. So he jams. I don't think we can raise and then fold, just because if he ever does have a hand like Jack Queen with the Queen of Clubs, it's a disaster when we fold. And sometimes people will just go crazy with like 10-8 here, or like 10-7, or like a 10 and like a gut shot or something like that. So I did decide to call. Wasn't very happy about it at the time, but anyway, I won't say results. But that's the second hand I thought was sort of interesting. Here's the last hand. I opened King 9 suited from mid position. I mean, you could definitely fold this. I think if you think you have a pretty good post flop edge, you can definitely open it, but it depends on the blinds. So here we have this is an 80 big blind stack, and this is a 60 big blind stack or so. So with short stacks in the blinds, there's a good chance they're weaker players, which means that we should be more likely to open King 9, because they will be more likely to call with a hand like King 5 and just stack off 3 streets or 2 streets on king high boards. Not stack off, but call it off. That means the same thing. Wow, I'm not recording this again. I'm not. So anyway, we open King 9 suited, and small blind calls, big blind folds. Flop is 9 high. Small blind checks. We c-bet about 60%. He raises about 3 times our c-bet. We decided to call. I think one of the cool things about calling is that if he does have some sort of combo draw, he will often barrel on kings, which is good for us. I mean, I just think there's so many combo draws you can have here and so few sets. I mean, with top pair, we block top set, and, you know, the only hands we're crushed by here are pocket 2s, pocket 5s, or if this guy's, maybe going crazy with ace 9, then we're in a really bad spot. But I think it's a pretty easy call. Turns a 2 and he pots it, which I think in hindsight I'm supposed to fold to, just because there's so many bad players at these stakes who will just, they'll have like pocket 9s here and not realize that potting this turn is not a good idea. So honestly, I think we're supposed to fold. I did peel just because I felt like there was a chance he could be doing this with a combo draw. And yeah, I mean, I guess just if he is the type of person to just pot the turn with the draw, we're just going to be put in a really tough spot on a lot of rivers. So I think we're supposed to fold this turn, but we call. River is a king of clubs, and I think this is actually a really bad card for us, because when he calls out of the small blind, it's not like he has jacks, queens, or aces here. So I don't think this card ever gives us the best hand, unless this guy, player 1, has a hand like 9-5. So I don't think it's good, because obviously all his hands like ace 4 suited, ace 3 suited, or I mean ace 4 of clubs and things like that get there. So he bets half pot. I mean, he jams, and I just don't think he has any bluffs here. So I mean, it kind of seems silly to call the turn if we're just going to fold on a king of clubs. So I think it's a really easy fold on the turn. We end up calling, but I really don't like it. I think it was just autopiloting at the time. But yeah, I guess if you think about his range, the king of clubs doesn't actually help us that much, because he just never has when he pots the flop and or he doesn't when he raises the flop and pots the turn. It's not like he has any one pair hands that we're now ahead of. So he's like pretty polarized. But the issue is like, what are his bluffs? Like he doesn't have any bluffs on the river, so I think it's an easy fold. And I think the turn is a fold. I don't know. I'm sort of rambling now, and the video is 10 minutes. So that's gonna be the first video. Let me know what you think. The only hand I think I played pretty well was the first hand. But anyway, that's the video, and let me know what you guys think.